Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Basepaul Podcast, sponsored by Zorian Bats. Get the good wood at ZorianBats.com. Check out their Facebook page for the latest happenings and events. Zorian Bats, America's baseball brand. The Basepaul Podcast is the featured podcast of thebasepaul.com. Consider access to exclusive deals today. Mark Foran of Rochester, New York, is this week's TikTok Award winner. Mark gets a free membership to thebasepaul.com and a special deal from one of the club's awesome online sponsors. Mark, which will you choose? For your chance to get a hookup just like this one, follow at TheBasepaul on TikTok. TheBasepaul.com. Keep swinging. Without further ado, I'm your host, Paul Mike, a.k.a. The Basepaul. Throw it around, throw it around, throw it around. It's the Basepaul Podcast. Lead it off right now. Welcome everybody into this first Basepaul Podcast. So excited to have you. It's been a wonderful start to the year so far. Of course, we've gone through spring training, and now we're 2 weeks into the MLB schedule and about 7 weeks into the college baseball schedule, if you can believe it. And it's been a wonderful season so far in the college game. There's so many competitive teams in that top 28, 25, and it's just been a delight to watch those teams compete so far. Certainly, there are some standout programs. LSU's one of them. Wake Forest has come on real strong to start this year. They've been an absolute surprise. Kentucky is doing great. I think Kentucky at this point only has maybe 4 losses or 3 losses. Certainly, South Carolina is doing very well. And you've heard me talk about Virginia. Virginia, for me, has really been a revelation. They've had some players come in through transfers and to shore up that starting pitching staff, and they've just been phenomenal defensively. Kyle Teal behind the dish has been absolutely electric. What a great player they've got in Kyle Teal. In this first episode, we're not going to talk a lot about college baseball, but I did want to go over some of the batting average leaders, the ERA leaders, and maybe the home run leaders here in the first quarter of the season. So let's do that now. Dylan Cruz leading the way in batting average, LSU at 525. Nick Iantoni at ETSU 485. Tyler Davis, Sam Houston 472. Jacob Wilson, Grand Canyon 465. And J.J. Weatherholt at West Virginia batting 463. The ERA leaders: Simon Miller, UTSA with a .50 ERA. Grant Rogers McNeese, 1.12. Paul Skeens at LSU, 1.14. Although I can tell you he was knocked around a little bit here this weekend by South Carolina. So shout out that South Carolina team for knocking around one of the best in the country. 4, Aiden Tyrell, Notre Dame, 1.24. 5, Rhett Lauder, Wake Forest, 1.40. And let's get into the big flies. And leading the way with the big flies is Jack Caglione out of Florida. The sophomore has 18 homers in 31 games. Chris Armstrong comes in at number 2 from Jacksonville with 17. Cam Fisher out of Charlotte, the sophomores get 16. And rounding off at 4 and 5 is the dynamic duo of Gavin Casas and Ethan Petrie from South Carolina. Gavin's a junior, and Ethan is the front runner for freshman of the year Ethan, an absolutely great player for South Carolina, and one of the big reasons why they're definitely a top 10 team, if not a top 5. Boston College might be the biggest surprise of this season so far, rising all the way to ninth, which I believe is their highest ranking in program history. Boston College is doing it despite losing first rounder Sal Frelick. And the Eagles had a tough weekend this weekend against Louisville, losing 3 games, although all 3 games were close. It will be interesting to see where they end up in the rankings, but certainly I think you'd have to say that Boston College is the surprise team in college baseball to this point. They've done a great job, really, with their weekend pitching, and timely hitting has been fantastic. Their defense has been strong, and they've got some power. They've got some pop in their lineup, and they can lose one quick. They can make up ground quick, and they've done that so far. So looks like Boston College is in the midst of a really top year for them, and we're certainly wishing them the best of luck. Let's move on to MLB now, where certainly the top story, I think, heading into this year has been the pitch clock. The pitch clock has been at the tip of the tongue of pundits and aficionados alike, and certainly there's a lot of commentary, in spring training. Certainly as spring training kicked off, there was quite a few delay of game calls and balls and strikes, and even one game ending up in a tie due to a walk on a pitch clock violation. That was certainly quite the stir, but I believe I saw a stat somewhere where at the end of spring training it said that pitch clock violations had dropped from like 2.1 a day in spring training to just 1.1 by the end of spring training, and that's carried over into the big league season. Not a whole lot of pitch clock violations. It's been interesting to see the game and how it's been sped up, and also a little bit of gamemanship in the way that players will call time or step off or throw over, and just generally to see how the players have coped with these new time clock rules. As a fan, I can tell you I've been to a few games now, and the games, and I've certainly watched a lot of games, but the games have gone quick. Listen, I think you'll understand pretty quick that I love baseball, and I love being at the ballpark. And for me, being at the ballpark is just sort of this special time to spend around the game, and to cap or restrict or constrict the amount of time at the game really is counter to what I enjoy so much about the game. But I can tell you that even I have found this new pace refreshing. The game times while I've been in stadium have been wonderful. I feel like I've gotten my baseball fix, and I have in no way felt shortchanged by these new pitch clock rules. The second biggest story in MLB thus far has been the 9-0 perfect start out of the Tampa Bay Rays. They're actually beaten down on teams. I think they've got a plus 57 run differential through just 9 games, according to Sarah Langs of Sarah Langs on Sports. The Rays plus 57 run differential is the highest in a team's first 9 games since 1900. Sarah cites the 1884 St. Louis Maroons with the highest run differential ever at 78. Shout out Sarah Langs. Follow her. And of course, they've been doing it with really good pitching, which the Rays have been known to do over the last 10, 15 years. But they're also flashing the power, too. Their 24 home runs is just one shy of the 2000 Cardinals AL/NL record through 9 games. So that's been really astonishing as well. I will say this, that they're also winning with their professionalism, a professionalism that I've come to expect and respect over the years. I'll tell you, their minor league instructors and their minor league managers are, in my opinion, a cut above. And we know how saber savvy they are. They use the metrics to develop their players, I think, better than anybody else. Then again, they're also doing it with good old-fashioned professionalism and attention to detail. I was watching their game yesterday on Easter Sunday. They were playing the A's, and Harold Ramirez was at first base. He was the R1. I believe it was first and second, maybe one out, and the first baseman on the A's was playing behind Harold. Harold's below average runner. But to Harold's credit, he got a great primary lead, and then he got an excellent secondary lead, and then he got a great jump heading towards second on a ground ball, and the ground ball went sort of towards the hole on the left side. Shortstop came over, snatched it, and threw to second to try to begin the double play, and Harold beat the throw, and they were not able to turn the double play. That gave the Rays bases loaded, and wouldn't you know, the very next hitter, Brandon Lowe, hit a grand slam. And so there you go. That's the type of professionalism, attention to detail, and savvy that the Rays have been adding to their great pitching and great hitting. So that's why they're on top. They're the number one team in all of MLB. They lead the American League East by 3 games over the New York Yankees. To round out that division, we got Toronto at 3, Boston's 5-4, and Baltimore is 4-5. Now that we've got the standings, we might as well just go around the league. Minnesota leads the Central with Cleveland, the White Sox, Kansas City, and Detroit lining up behind them. The Los Angeles Angels are 5-4. They lead Texas, Houston, and Seattle. The A's are struggling with a 2-7 record. They've scored just 27 runs for and have given up 72. Atlanta leads the NL East with a 6-4 record. The New York Mets are 5-5. Miami, Philadelphia, and Washington round out the East. NL Central, the Milwaukee Brewers with a 7-2 record. They've got 48 runs scored against 23. Pittsburgh, Chicago, Cincinnati, and St. Louis complete that Central. And last but not least, in the NL West, we have Arizona at 6-4, but very tight in that division with San Diego 6-4, the Dodgers at 5-5, San Fran at 4-5, and Colorado just 2 games back at 4-6. Despite the Cardinals being in last place in the Central, they also have one of the top good stories in MLB with Jordan Walker, a 20-year-old, 6'6", 245-pound outfielder leading their offense. He's off to a great start, hitting 340-something, 9-game hitting streak to open up the year. And Walker has been able to climb and ascend through their program, through their organization, without ever taking a swing at AAA. So an absolutely phenomenal young player that they've got, and he's injecting some life in this last place team and a very proud MLB organization. Talking about good young players, let's get into our minor league watch real quick. Just a handful of names here in the minor leagues that are doing some damage. Leading the way is probably Lenel Sosa for the White Sox, 23 years old, with a 1448 OPS in 32 plate appearances. He's got 12 hits, 23 total bases, 8 RBIs. So he's doing a great job for the White Sox. Brett Batty of the New York Mets, 23 years old. He's got a 1300 OPS in 17 plate appearances. He's got 13 total bases, so he's doing well. Blaze Alexander, 23 years old, at AAA for Arizona. He's doing a great job. 28 plate appearances, 15 hits. He's got a 1300 OPS. One more guy we'll note, 37 plate appearances for Nolan Jones, Colorado, and he's got a 1244 OPS. So let's stop it there. Still early, and but those guys are off to great starts. There's a couple of teams that I've got my eye on right now for sort of worst to first type of turnarounds. Neither of these teams actually were in last place in their division last year. I'm talking about Texas and Miami, but they both had very poor records. Texas had a 68-94 record last year, and Miami had a 69-93 record last year. The other team I'm looking at is the Miami Marlins, who, although they've lost Pablo Lopez to the Minnesota Twins, and Pablo, by the way, is off to a great start with them, they've still got a good young pitching staff with, their number 3 being Trevor Rogers, 25 years old. Jesus Luzardo's their number 2, he's 25. And Sandy Alcantara now is 27, but he's a young guy as well. Jesus Luzardo's their number 2, and he's off to a great start with a .71 ERA. But Trevor Rogers, for me, is the key with that team. He's, I don't know, there's a lot of guys that have a nice, easier, looser motion from him, throwing motion. He's a lefty. A couple of years ago, he had a 2.4 ERA, I believe. So if he can get back to that kind of form, I think, 2 of those 5 guys at least are going to hold it down. By the way, Johnny Cueto is also on that team, but he's on the 15-day IL. In addition to that, you never know with a team like this. They've got some young guys in the batting order. Nick Fortes, a catcher, is 26. Luis Arez is 26. Brian De La Cruz is 26. And Chaz Chisholm is 25. So you never know. Sometimes these young guys can emerge and really lift a team up and help the team shock some folks. And I know this is a very difficult division with Philadelphia, the Mets, and who else am I missing? Philadelphia, Mets, and Atlanta. But you never know. They could surprise some people. One serious injury to note today. We had a collision at home plate in the Pittsburgh White Sox game where Pittsburgh shortstop O'Neal Cruz fractured his ankle. Looked to be a fairly significant fracture. The play created the benches clearing, and there was some words exchanged. I actually saw O'Neal play last week when he was in Boston, saw him play for the first time, and I was very impressed with him. He's a real presence on the field. Everyone can see it, and everyone respects it. Saw a couple of coaches from Boston walk over and shake his hand at the beginning of that game, and even a player walk over and say hello to him as well. Looks like he's a guy who's going to garner a lot of respect from the league and players around the league. So, he's a good, young, talented player. And I thoroughly enjoyed watching him throw the ball across the diamond. He's got a great arm. I think that's probably what he's most notable for, other than maybe his speed, for his size. So, on and on and on. But a notable injury nonetheless, and hopefully he gets back on the field pretty quick and it's not too serious of a fracture, because he's such a talented young player, and he's the type of person who really lights up your screen, and he can make great plays. So wishing well to O'Neill as he comes back from that injury. Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up soon. Just also wanted to just mention, it's just been a tremendous pleasure to jump back into this sort of journalism field. It's been a while, I think 2014, since I've been working hard in journalism. I do have a journalism degree from college, and I was a online reporter from 2010, 2014. I think my work there was significant, going all over the region. It was only, I think I was maybe the only regional baseball reporter around, and I did some great work, and I know I'll do great work here. I'm going to get my feet underneath me a little bit, but the show's going to continue to get better and better. I can tell you that. That's what it's all about, getting a little bit better every day. Since 2014, I've been coaching, been scouting, been doing some consultant work for one MLB team in particular, and been successful in all areas. This summer, I'll coach a collegiate summer league team and some very good college players, and I think I'll be there again. I think, really enjoyed still working in the player development side of things, and sharing what I know with a lot of players, and helping them get better. I do have a rich sort of resume, I think you should say, or I could say, in terms of, where I've worked in game. I've been a salesman for a woodback company, had success doing that. So just in general, I don't want to, sort of brag too much or whatever, but I have had success. I've had a lot of success in the roles that I've had, and I'm certainly very grateful for any of the opportunities that I've had, and for the opportunities that I'm sure I'll have in the future. But I love the game, and to be able to share my experience and my perspectives with this listenership will be a tremendous joy for me. So I'm looking forward to it. Again, we're going to get better and better. Head on over to thebasepaul.com and consider signing up for a membership. I don't think you'll regret it at all. And hey, let's have some fun together. And I can't wait to, talk to you again in episode 2. All right, everyone. The Baseball, I'm out. Keep swinging.